want to just spend 15 minutes thinking about this, and we can record it. I'm not sure. It's mostly going to be discussion, James. You can record it, but I don't really expect a whole lot out of it, but we'll try. It's time to think a little bit about, once you've done this essay, what you're going to do for the rest of the semester. So what are the different things that you could make? What are the different ideas that you might have about things that you would want to make? What are the different things that you've learned how to do? This whole conversation is just meant to sort of stimulate you thinking. Yeah, Mike, what are you thinking you might be able to do?
Well, I'm flexible with it, but including and excluding information, which...
Including or excluding information?
Like stuff like bring up your lists, click this button to show this, click this button not to show it.
So you might, okay, so Michael's idea, so you might identify a bunch of different techniques and practice developing them. So the one that you were talking about was called reveals. So you might look at various, that would be an interesting idea, yeah. So here's how you might spin Michael's idea. Do you know how to do that in other platforms?
I've seen it executed in other platforms.
Okay. Yep, so you might find different ways that others have executed interactive text, not in TiddlyWiki, in the web, in PowerPoint, wherever, and say, okay, I want to do that in TiddlyWiki. So you identify a set of techniques that others have made, and you want to master that in TiddlyWiki. So it's sort of like reverse engineering Wikipedia, Google News. You could collect a whole bunch of those. That would work as a project. Yeah. Has anybody ever used the reveals in PowerPoint? What's it called in PowerPoint? Anybody ever animate their slides? Nobody uses slides anymore?
Yeah, it's like a simple transition.
Transitions, yeah. Animations, yeah, simple transitions, right? Okay. Well, they're not simple. They're simple for you to use as a user, but they're hard, if you think about it, to edit your transitions as a writer, because everything's all sort of in the same space. But in TiddlyWiki, we can pull that apart. You can have the things that will be transitioned sitting over here, and the code to govern those transitions separate from it. So we can do some of that work in TiddlyWiki that you can do in PowerPoint, but you can do it differently. So that it can have different types of transitions or animations depending on the reader's choice. Okay. So those are techniques. Anybody have content ideas? Content ideas? Yeah, Chris?
I was the one I was going to project. I'm not sure this is like a project though. Just like taking all like the DM manuals and like importing them all into like one thing to like create a campaign within TiddlyWiki.
Which manuals?
Dungeons and Dragons.
What'd you call it? DM?
Yeah,
Dungeon Masters, yeah. Okay. Because they're complicated, right? Yeah, how big?
Yeah.
This big? I don't know what that means.
That's all.
That's the thickness of the pages. Okay. Do you have digital versions of them?
Yeah, there are PDFs, but like there are like PDFs. And PDFs are really hard to navigate because if you try to use like Control F, some of the words based on like the format and the font, that they're actually like spaces between some of the letters to make it look correct.
So do you have text versions of that, or only PDF?
I think there are text versions.
Okay, there's probably a text version. That would save you a lot of time. If you've been reading those Vandendorp essays, you see what happens when you go PDF to text. There's like problems in it, but it still works, yeah.
I think what's it's called Scribd or Scripted.
Yep, that's where you can get the PDFs.
And I have a friend of mine who has all of he's visually impaired, so he uses the text or text-to-speech software.
Mm-hmm.
He's managed to find completely text-based versions.
Yeah, there are. Because others have done this. I know that there's text versions of that. Yeah, that would be cool. So I would put that concept in the category of weakifying an existing resource, or tiddlyweakifying an existing resource. So you can take any resource that exists as PDF, so it exists effectively in print, even if you can display it on your screen, or any resource that exists as a flat file, any document. It can be a complicated data-driven document like a DM manual, or it can be a straight text-based reading document like, I don't know, I'm into politics, so we can talk about different ones. One of the things that I like is the 9/11 report, the 9/11 Commission report. So you can weakify this kind of a government document. The 9/11 Commission report starts with this really cool chapter called We Have Some Planes. It's a second-by-second TikTok, it's called, of what happened on 9/11 from boarding the flights at like 6 a.m. to, I forget where the TikTok ends. Maybe, I think the towers came down at 9:30 and 9:45, and then, so I think the TikTok ends around there. Actually, when the plane crashes in Pennsylvania, if you remember 9/11. So that's, what's interesting is there's like 12 hijackers, 30 government officials, different locations, different planes, different cities. So hopefully, as I describe this, in your head, you're beginning to think, oh, each person becomes a tiddler. Each plane becomes a tiddler. Each time, each city. So then you add, instead of having this text, when you click, you can click on Boston American 11 and learn about that plane flight. So you add depth to a flat document, very similar. But you can do that with DM manual. You can do that with anything. Those of you who are, I always gravitate towards political examples, but you can do this with a novel. You can do this with any document and add a depth or weakification to it. If you're into the Trump-Russia story, the indictment that was handed up on Friday of the Russians conspirators, that would be a pretty cool document to begin to work with. Or if you were really into that whole, anybody into that, or should I just stop right there? Anybody following Trump, Russia? Just me?
I've followed it. It kind of makes me a little bit unhappy with some of that.
Yeah. Those, depending on where you want to go, and how complex you want to make it, there's, and as I begin to get a feel of your projects, I'll direct some of you to certain places. There's this text slicer edition in TiddlyWiki that will take any text and cut it into tiddlers, basically on the basis of paragraphs, and build the whole hierarchical structure. So you can take an HTML text, any text that's, I think we can deal with Word documents now, that's got a structure to it, and we can render that structure in TiddlyWiki. Some of you use digital textbooks for your classes. Those are EPUBs. We can ingest an EPUB and render it in TiddlyWiki, so you can write in your books if you wanted to do that. You can take whatever book, anything that you can get. We can ingest and digest, and we use this as like a Swiss Army knife, a document converter that brings things in and pushes things out. So you imagine it, don't let the idea of taking any text that you can find, almost any text, and weakifying it by building structure to it. That's a concept. So Michael's idea, right? Michael, yeah, I got it. Not that Mike. Michael's idea of, I want to find a bunch of hypertextual techniques out there in the wild and understand them and render them in TiddlyWiki. That's an exercise of going through techniques and thinking through what those different characteristics are. That works. Chris's idea of finding an existing text and adding weakification structure to it. That works. Those are two so far. What else can we do? So, where am I going to find this?
I could make a text-based video game.
Yeah.
Not that I know anybody who's that.
Do you? Yeah. What's a text-based video game?
The video game where you basically have to read text and then put in like your own input.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's a bunch of them. The first one that I ever played was called Adventure, I think. And they don't even list it. It's like circa 81, 82. Maybe it was New Adventure. I can't remember. But you basically, you were presented a scenario and you made a choice, pretty much just like Ryan suggested. So like, you know, you're sitting here, there's a door to the left, there's a door in front of you, and there's a swimming pool to the right. And you had to type jump in pool. And then it would take you to the swimming pool tiddler and something would happen. So you could construct an entire narrative, multi-threaded narrative that would walk people through that game. That would be cool. That's absolutely. You could take an existing game and repopulate it in TiddlyWiki. Better, create your own game. You know, build your own narrative. So that would be pretty cool. Yeah.
Steve's Quest.
Pardon?
Like Steve's Quest.
Like Steve's Quest. Is that what you're building?
Yeah.
I don't know which Steve it is, so I'm okay.
Nobody knows which Steve.
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody's Steve is
Yeah. So you can do that. Okay. That's a cool idea. Others? Let me. Yeah.
We use it to store a bunch of information like cards. Like if you're making a card game, you know, each tiddler choose a card in its own category, something like that.
Cool. Yeah. Right. You could definitely make card games. 52 cards. Each card's in a tiddler. You could probably. Is that what you were thinking, or are you thinking something else?
It's like more modern. Not like detective.
Okay. And what would and then you use the wiki to navigate from card to card?
You know, each tiddler would be its own card. All associated.
Okay. Yeah. So that is, I think, going to be like this. I just opened it, but I lost it already. So one of your predecessors wrote a dynamic photo album, and I think this is like Mike's idea, but maybe not. Okay. So, and you can tell this is, I think, the final project, and it's got its issues, but got the point across. So that was what was really important. So most of the photo essays, and these objects could be cards, photos, movies, they can be anything. But the idea is you have a list, you have a bunch of objects, whatever they are, and you're looking at one at a time. Because you're always looking at one at a time. And then the question is, well, what's the next one? What's the next one? And what's the next one? Where do I go from there? So most of the stuff that you've played with, when you're looking at things one at a time, there's a first, previous, next, last. And here, in John's dynamic photo album, there's 4 or 3, I think, season, activity, and age. So he's looking at this picture and, oh, show me the next picture of my kid when she's 3 to 4 years old. Looks like I'm on the last one already. So show me the previous one when she's 3 to 4 years old. Show me, so now I'm navigating on 3 to 4, and now show me the previous winter photograph. So it's a 4-dimensional, 3-dimensional, you know, you can have as many as you want. Instead of looking at the screen, look in your mind, what would that look like on your phone? because these things work really well on your phone. So look at your phone, and there's a picture of my dog, right? And I want to go to the next picture of my dog. But this is a picture of my dog in the winter. So I want to go to, so I'm swiping left and right for dog, previous, last. And I'm going up and down for the season. So I go through all my winter photographs or all my dog photographs. And maybe on the diagonal, it's my, I don't know, I've got a white dog and a black dog. So I've got white pictures and black pictures. And maybe on the other diagonal, I've got, what else might I have? Pictures near my house and pictures in different locations. So from any single photograph, you can go first, previous, next, last. And I don't know, I see 1, 2, 3, 4 dimensions really easily. If you think about the diagonals and the up and down. That's kind of cool. What could those objects be besides photographs of my family? Mike wants to put cards in there, I think. Does that sort of describe what you're talking about? Yeah. What else could you put in there?
Recipes.
Recipes.
Like that's really that's
Sure. Okay.
really
Yeah.
intricate.
Recipes. I like it, Ben. Chicken and beef and yeah. Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Basically, any type of information you wanted to organize that had multiple different.
No, I know that, but like, so what strikes you is like, oh, it would be cool if I did this.
Cars.
Hmm?
Cars.
Pictures of cars. Those are pictures.
No, like actual cars, like for a car dealership. Like an actual program for it. Keeps track of their stock, organizes it based on model.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. So that's like a database structure. Yeah. Does anybody ever, I listened to this, I'm a podcast fan. There was a podcast a couple years ago that NPR broadcast called Serial. And it was a true crime story. It was 18 episodes or 12 episodes of a true crime story in Baltimore in the 90s. And it was really interesting. Had like 30 characters and I don't know, maybe 20 different locations. And also it was very complex sort of litigation. And the podcast itself was about 45 minutes, but they were chunked into 5 or 7 minute sections about a different character or a different day. So rather than think of the episode as an episode, so you just go from one episode to another, what if you chunked that episode and tagged each chunk of an episode by character, location, date? You could do this for any soap opera or TV series that you've ever watched, where you break apart the structure that they provide in episodes and you create an internal navigation. Who would want to do that? Yeah.
Someone creating a fan wiki.
Fan wikis, exactly, right? Does anybody ever look at that stuff? Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, right? Sure, right? So like certainly the fan wiki world would work perfectly for that. And you can take any, I had a student last semester took a podcast. What's the semi-goofy podcast about the imaginary town?
Open the Night Vale.
Yeah, there you go. Welcome to Night Vale. So he extracted all the, doesn't Welcome to Night Vale start with the weather forecast?
Mm-hmm.
So you could listen to just the weathers. So because we can write code to play a piece of audio or a piece of video with a start and a stop. And so you begin to use the time dimension for existing media and you chunk it into start-stop times so that you're, instead of listening to Night Vale, maybe the first time through you want to listen to it as a linear thing, but the second time through, like those of us who got really hooked in Serial and into the mystery, I'd hear something in like episode 12. I said, wait a second, who is that guy? I forgot. So I'd want to replay, tell me more about this detective. And that allows me to create a story, a podcast on my own of all the stuff about a particular detective. So I just link all those audio files together. And now as a reader, I'm in effect acting as an editor But as a writer, you're creating the opportunity for your readers to sort of mess with the order. I have another student who's someday going to finish his movie, and this would work for any of you guys who have video games, right? So if he has a documentary that he's been working on for a long time, it's one of the graduate students, and he's got maybe 40 or 50 short video clips that are interviews of people that he interviewed from the neighborhood where he grew up in Philadelphia. And they're all tagged up at this point, and they describe different events in his life. So rather than him as the documentary filmmaker saying, here's my movie in the order, he could create a situation where we have access to those 40 clips and we construct the order as the reader. You could build that kind of thing. Professor Stam, anybody ever work with Stam, Catherine Stam? She's an anthropologist and ethnographer on faculty here. She's very active in the refugee community in Utica. She has a collection of 15,000 photographs. That's a lot. We don't need that many. We could grab those photographs and tag them, and I think we could create a photo essay. We'd actually proposed to do this, but they didn't accept our paper at the conference, so we didn't do it, right? So we could build a photo essay. I'm thinking there's supposed to be exactly 64 photographs in this photo essay, because that's 4 photographs with each of 4 different values on each of 4 different dimensions. 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. So if you do the math, that would be a perfect matrix. So any one photograph would lead, depending on a specific set of tags, to one and only one other photograph. The way you navigate to that would be known. So you're going from a photograph of a, I don't know, if we put these in cars, you're going from a red Ford convertible to a red Ford truck. So we know that path, and then you're going from the red Ford truck to the blue Ford truck, and from the blue Ford truck to the blue Chrysler truck. There are no such Chrysler trucks, blue Dodge trucks. So you'd know your path, and the text that you would display with that photograph would depend on the path where you came from. So you'd be writing an essay that was non-sequential. So if you wanted to play in that space, we could work on that. So those are all based on this idea of multiple navigation. Single objects that you can navigate to other objects. They can be fixed, they can be fluid, they can be, you can add them on the fly, you can have them very tightly fixed. So that's a whole other set of ideas. Some of you might be writing a master's thesis or an undergraduate thesis if you're like an IDS student, if you're writing a long research paper for a psychology class or something else. We can certainly render that through TiddlyWiki. So those are ideas. So I wanted to just kind of open your minds to all sorts of different concepts. Yeah.
This is a bit of an odd one, but could you theoretically
Yes.
basically make a wiki that would like branch out, like starting with an explanation of the Mattel company, that slowly branch out to the animated series that they all created, trying to push their toys, like trying to make a single page, like a single thing that links to the successful ones that branch off the unsuccessful ones.
Sure. Yeah, because you just have to have a set of objects and a set of tags that describe those objects. Yeah. And then what you're describing then is essentially like an encyclopedia kind of thing that has it's similar in some ways to what we talked about before. But what Michael adds is like he might want to weekify multiple different texts, not a single text. So he might want to bring together all sorts of different sources on a topic of interest and then create a weekified repository of that data. I think that's what you're after. Yeah. So Andrew, you could certainly do the Hall of Fame. I saw that in one of your previous projects, Baseball Hall of Fame. Didn't you do that? We can do that. As you think about what you're going to build, there's some ideas to keep in mind. So one is if you're mostly interested in the relationship among objects, and you find that curious and worth exploring, then begin to think of a set of objects that you could find. There's 52 playing cards. So if you want to make games out of 52 cards, you could probably teach yourself how to make games and poker hands and stuff like that. There's 52 cards. There's, I'm always politics, so I always go for the 45 presidents, 100 Supreme Court justices, 450 members. All right, that's really boring, right? There's collections that you own. So there's all the CDs that you have in your house that you should be throwing away because you never play them anymore. There's all the video games you've ever played in your life. There's your photographs. Those are all sets of objects that you have. There's existing texts that can be worked on, and there's totally new things that you want to create. So that kind of gives you an idea to start thinking about it. And then I'm going to start asking you to respond in the group over the next 2 and 3 weeks of some concepts, so that when second half of the semester, you basically have your projects that you're working on, and I'm going to set up a schedule for demos where you'll be sharing stuff. So let me stop at that, and we'll wrap up the day there.